The weather finally broke, at least to some degree. Torrential rains temporarily gave way to sporadic drizzles, so I headed to one of the channel's trademark spots, Turtle Bayou in Anahuac. Water levels were higher than I've ever seen, rising almost to the crest of the Whites Park launch. I made my way down those familiar cypress-lined avenues. It's amazing how different changing conditions can make a familiar route appear. The expansive waters from recent rainfall made the bayou appear more river-like in width, and the clay-clad banks were no longer visible, giving the illusion of floating trees along the bayou's boundary. Winds were a bit different than the patterns I'm used to here. Sustained winds were a mild 7 to 10 miles per hour, but gusts were recorded up to 26. Down the sheltered corridor of Turtle Bayou and beyond the FM 563 bridge, things were pleasant for the most part, with the exception of the lens-fogging humidity. But as I neared the terminus of the bayou, the effects of the gusts became more evident. The best way I can describe it is that it felt like the sustained crossing of a powerboat wake. It wasn't super aggressive like the more frequent windy days of the region. It was more consistent with moderate swells and had an almost rhythmic quality. I did make my way onto Lake Anahuac for a brief period, but elected not to get too far from the mouth of the bayou in case the weather were to take a quick and unexpected turn. A few whitecaps crested the bow here and there, but slow paddle strokes kept most of the breaking water at bay. Wildlife was minimal today. I expected to see quite a few gators, but instead saw only a handful. However, one did escort me roughly half a mile on my return up the bayou. Occasional egrets and a couple of kites were the only winged critters I could clearly make out on this trip. After concluding my brief venture onto the lake, I headed back but made a short detour into Whites Bayou, curious as to whether the high water levels would provide a way beyond some of the downed tree obstacles that had hindered further passage on previous paddles. It nearly did, but not quite. This minimal trek is still worthwhile and provided the illusion of numerous lowered arbors of greenery brought on by the recent rains. Though we've covered most legs of Turtle Bayou before on the channel, I'll give my final thoughts on the route, with the caveats that come with changing conditions. As noted previously, Turtle Bayou is one of my more favored medium-distance paddles. Its strengths are that it can be extended nearly indefinitely between both forks of the main bayou, Lake Anahuac, and the flanking Whites Bayou. The launch at Whites Park is versatile, and the direct-from-bank launch today was among the flattest entry options I've experienced, though changing water levels may sometimes dictate otherwise. Though wildlife was sparse today, when conditions are right, you'll likely see your fill of gators and waterfowl. The last major advantage is that much of the route offers ample shelter from the wind. The primary caution on this route comes down to the relatively small yet consistent number of powered craft you'll encounter. The upside is that they are primarily anglers rather than speedboats and ski boats, and they're usually pretty good about respecting no wake zones and other paddling considerations. For those interested in the fishing situation, I've met several locals who swear by this tributary for channel catfish. I might recommend that absolute beginners not make this their first solo paddle, but beyond that, it's a route that can be enjoyed by most experience levels. Give it a shot. Paddle safe, and God bless.